Hey, what's going on, guys? So understanding dog breed bloodlines is super important. Whether you're picking out a dog, whether you're looking to get some dogs for your dog breeding program, whatever the case may be, it can literally make or break the new addition that you're going to be adding to your program, to your family, so on and so forth. So I believe that this is something that's not talked about enough. So this is really going to be a guide, an episode that really covers everything you need to know about dog breed bloodlines. What's going on, Bully fam? It's your boy, the educator, the scientist, Mr. Double Muscle Line Bulls, bringing you another episode of Breeders Hacks. So today, I'm waiting for my wife, so I figured, hey, while she's getting ready and stuff like that, I'll go ahead, shoot you guys another episode. So this is something that I kind of been wanting to talk about for a little while now, and it's dog breed bloodlines. And understanding bloodlines is super, super, super important because whether, yet again, like as I said, whether you're a breeder, whether you're just looking to get a dog as a pet home, whatever the case it may be, the bloodline, that's really going to play a big role as to the characteristics, whether it's physical or whether it's going to be mental. That's going to play a big role as far as the dog that you will be introducing to your home, your program, whatever the case may be. Especially when it comes to breeders, understanding dog breed bloodlines is super important because that can literally dictate the direction that you go in. And if you're not aware of the bloodlines that you're using or introducing or whatever the case may be, it could take you to a place where you may be producing dogs that you're not trying to produce, or you're not getting the look you're after, the characteristics you're after, and you're wondering why. And a humongous part is the bloodlines. So that's what I really wanted to just cover real quick while I'm waiting for her to come in. So let's get started. So when you're looking to start your program or add a new addition to your family, it's more than just looking at that one individual dog. Yes, there's exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, a dog is really going to take after the bloodline that he comes after. And you can take the same breed and have two completely different looks, two completely different characteristics based off of the bloodlines that those breeders produced. Prime example is recently I seen some Chow Chows. The European style compared to the American style is absolutely completely different, but they're both considered Chow Chows. Same thing for Rottweilers. I've seen these more, I believe they're like European looking Rottweilers versus these American Rottweilers. And even within every breed, you're going to see drastic differences. So the key thing is looking at the bloodlines, and not only physically, but mentally as well. There's certain bloodlines that are known and prone to have certain issues, and other bloodlines that are known to have its issues within the same breed. So what I'm about to say now is a little bit more geared towards if you were breeding, but at the same time, these principles do apply if you're looking for a pet or whatever the case may be, even if it's just for a family dog. And this is also going to be good for my breeders that do understand bloodlines and know bloodlines, to go ahead and share this with their clients, so that then their clients can understand as well the dog that they're getting from the particular breeder, yourself or whatever the case may be. They're getting a dog from a particular bloodline and understanding the importance of that. So this is really going to be a video for everybody, but I'm talking more towards my breeders right now. So especially like when starting out, when I was looking at particular bloodlines, like what you want to do is look at what bloodlines are producing top quality dogs, the top quality that you're after. But on a consistent basis and honestly, like above average. You know, you want to look at what we've talked about prior on this channel is preponent dogs that, wow, I look at this stud and he's producing, 80% of himself in the litter. He's producing quality dogs. Every single litter, it's very consistent, very consistent. I mean, I guess for the average person, maybe even average is maybe okay, but you don't want to see a bloodline. You don't want to see a bloodline and the dogs from that bloodline are very inconsistent. You want to see top notch throughout the bloodline. And there's this one particular bloodline that I remember. This is what sold me on the bloodline. Was I remember I was looking and I saw a Facebook post and there was 200 dogs from this particular Facebook post. They were all off of different litters. It was a consistent look, and not only consistent, but the specimens from this bloodline, the dogs from this bloodline were absolutely phenomenal. All of them, all 200, off of 200 different litters. That is exceptional. That's what you want. You want bloodlines that overproduce, meaning produce great quality dogs every time, or for the majority of the time. And that's what's going to keep you in a good place. So the 200 dogs, that just amazed me. And that's what really sold me on that bloodline. I had been looking at it, but that's what really sold me on it. And there's not too many bloodlines that can do stuff like that. So now there's the other end of the spectrum. So now when you're doing your homework and you find a bloodline that maybe there's one exceptional dog that you like, but the litter mates aren't that great, the parents aren't that great, maybe the grandparents look decent, whatever, like it's scattered, you can expect that you're probably not going to get too many consistent results. Here's my thing. I'd rather go with a mediocre dog that comes from an exceptional bloodline than to go with a dog that looks phenomenal, looks like the perfect dog in your eyes, but comes from a bloodline that is very inconsistent, because it's going to be very hard to get those consistent looks. If you can get consistency with one particular bloodline, it becomes easier to add characteristics and do certain things, versus if you breed to a bloodline that's very inconsistent, it's going to be very hard because you're dealing with so much inconsistency. It's going to take a very long time, and even then so. This is the best way to think of it and look at it. The mediocre dog is the exception to its bloodline, meaning it's mediocre, but everything else in its bloodline is consistent and exceptional and is good. The perfect dog is the exception to his bloodline, meaning he's perfect, but everything else isn't perfect or consistent. So which exception would you rather go with when you think about it? And that's the mistake that I don't even want to say breeders, everyone really makes, because they go based off of the individual dog, and they look at the individual dog and they say, okay, this dog is perfect, but they don't look at the family tree. And that's what's super important. You got to look at the family tree. You got to say, okay, what do the siblings look like? What do the parents look like? What do the grandparents look like? Things like that. And what are they producing? And even as a pet, looking at a puppy, and if you see what the adults and their litters turned out to look like, that also helps you gauge what the puppy's going to look like when the puppy gets older. And that leads to my next thing, which is super important. And this was something that I learned. I wrote this down when I learned this myself. You might want to write it down. And what's extremely important is dogs produce the average of their gene pool. To understand what that means is kind of what I was getting at, is where people look at a dog that comes from, like I said, it may come from a mediocre bloodline, but the dog is the exception because he is extremely phenomenal. And then when they get mediocre puppies, they don't understand where it came from. They maybe blame their female, whatever the case may be. But what it really is the stud that came from the mediocre bloodline, but is exceptionally, he looks perfect. The thing is, he's giving you the average of his gene pool. You may get something like him perfect. You also may get something not that great because of the bloodline that he comes from. Same thing goes for the mediocre dog that we were talking about, and the perfect and the great bloodline that dog comes from. So with that being said, the dogs that you use for breeding or that you add to your bloodline program, whatever, the dogs that you use when breeding, those dogs are going to give you the average of their gene pool. What is the average of their gene pool? The average of their gene pool is their siblings, their parents, the grandparents. But the siblings, in my opinion, is extremely important. That's going to tell you a lot, because the siblings are the combinations of DNA, the combinations of dogs that you're probably going to produce off of the dog that you're using. So people don't look at that. People look at, hey, I love the first pick. I want the first pick of the litter. I want to choose the best puppy out of the litter. but you also need to look at the rest of the puppies, because that's all the combinations that you will probably be producing. So now, if you get a very nice, consistent litter of all phenomenal dogs, the parents look phenomenal, the grandparents look phenomenal, you have a pretty strong and safe bet that you're going to produce phenomenal dogs. You're going to have phenomenal dogs. Same thing goes with mental traits as well. But I'm just using the physical ones because it's the easiest ones to like relate to. So if I could make it as simple as possible, what's going to basically happen is if you take your dog and breed to another dog and you get puppies, those puppies are going to be the average of not just the parents and not just the grandparents. You're going to get the average of the mother's litter mates and the father's litter mates. You're going to get a combination of those as well as the grandparents and their litter mates. So that's why having a strong bloodline that's consistent with dogs that look exceptionally well and the litters that they came from were exceptionally well is so important, because you're going to get the average. It's not 1 and 1, it's this whole group plus this whole group, and you're going to get an average of the two groups. So that's why when I look at, I mean, I haven't bought a puppy in a very, 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 very long time. I produce puppies. But when looking at a puppy, I look at the litter mates, because I know I'm going to get an average of something around there, as well as I say, can I see the parents? But not only the parents, can I see the parents' litter mates? So I know that I'm going to get an average of this litter that I'm looking at now, the parents' litter, the mother and the father, their litter mates, as well as maybe even the grandparents and their litter mates. So I'll try to look at as much as I can of the litters, and that'll give me my average of, okay, this is what I can expect, when looking at a bloodline. So once you've figured out what bloodlines you like, the next thing is to look at, okay, let's just say I see 2 or 3 breeders that have the same bloodline, but this one breeder, even though they have the same bloodline, his combination is just working great. I love the dogs that he's producing. Whatever he's doing is working for him. The next thing you need to look at is, okay, what combinations are working for that bloodline? So the breedings from that bloodline, whatever breedings that a particular breeder is doing to get that exceptional look or that exceptional characteristic, that trait, whatever that breeder is breeding for, whatever is working with that bloodline, that's what you want to emulate. That's what you want to go after now. So you want to say, okay, you know what? I see, I'll give you a prime example is us. Crossbones' bloodline, he comes from Garden State, and he's paintball bred to a baked daughter, things like that. That combination with our female, the local Lotto blood, it produces exceptionally well. It produces the Angry Toy Bull look, is what we produce now, Angry Toy Bulls. That's what created that. So looking at, and then I'm sure there's plenty of people who have bred to both bloods and have gotten completely different looks. But when we take those bloods together, that combination, it just produces that Angry Toy Bull look that we like to produce, that we're after. So that's the next phase, is take the blood and look at what combinations take it to the next level, make it better, or bring it to a direction that you like, that you're after, whatever the case it may be. Because some people can take a certain bloodline and breed to it and make it worse based off of, obviously, yet again, the female or the male that they bred to that bloodline. Look at the combinations and see what's working within that bloodline. So the next thing is, let's say you found the bloodline you like, you want to use. Who should you get it from? I mean, I couldn't give you an answer on exactly who to get it from. Unless you're looking for Angry Toy Bulls, then get it from me. But no, really, I couldn't tell you, because so many different breeds, so many different bloodlines. It's crazy. But I can give you a little bit of tips and tricks as far as how to know who's going to be the right person to more than likely get your dogs from when it comes to looking for a particular bloodline. So some of the things is, the first thing is, reputation is everything. You want to look for breeders that have a good reputation for producing top quality dogs. That's an obvious one. Look at their reputation. If the breeder is confident in their reputation, if someone was to ask me about my reputation, I have plenty of references. I can send you people who bought puppies from me. They'd be more than happy to tell you the experience that they've had with me, as well as how the dogs turned out, how happy they were, how the dogs turned out, and what the dogs produced for them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, obviously, stay away from breeders who have bad reputations, breeders who are known for, maybe hanging papers, which basically means, lying on the papers, lying on the pedigree, saying that this dog is bred to this dog when that's really not the case. If the breeder is known for that, how do you know that the bloodline you're getting is accurate? So if the breeder already has a reputation for that, or if you've asked references or whatever the case may be, you're probably going to want to stay away from them. Your chances of producing great dogs only increase when you find a breeder who's producing top quality dogs within his bloodline. And not only that, but he's producing top quality dogs, and other people who are taking a part in his bloodline or breeding to his dogs or whatever the case may be are also getting top quality dogs. You increase your chances a lot by going with that breeder, because if other people are getting success, you're more than likely going to get some success as well too, by going with the dogs that he may have. Some dogs, even though they come from a bloodline, they look the part, everything like that. Some dogs also just aren't great producers. They're not great at producing dogs, and that happens. You may purchase a dog off of a particular litter, and your chances are good because the blood that the dog comes off of, but there is always a chance that that particular dog just isn't a great producer, and that happens. But like I was saying before, as long as the breeder is honest, you know what dogs are put into that dog, and you can play around with the genetics as far as choosing the right mate for the dog that you've purchased, or whatever the case may be, to get the right breedings. I'll give you an example. It's like a mechanic working on a car, and then now another mechanic comes after to work on that car after the first mechanic did. The first mechanic, if he left proper notes on what he did to that car, then the second mechanic should be able to follow up much easier on whatever has to get done. But if the mechanic didn't leave notes or lied on the notes and said they did one thing and did something else, it's going to be much harder for the mechanic after them to pick up where the first one left off. So I hope that's a good analogy. I don't know. And like I was saying, what's super important is going to the right breeder to get your dog, because not only are they going to understand the bloodline, but they're going to also be able to tell you the flaws in the bloodline. What are the specific genetic flaws that you may come across, whether it's, yet again, psychological, the traits of the dog, how they act, or maybe whether it's health issues, or maybe whether it's just simply, physical characteristics. The dogs don't produce as much bone or as much muscle, or whatever the case may be. And the breeder should be able to tell you this. I know with an older bloodline that I used to deal with, I don't deal with this bloodline anymore. I completely stopped using it. But this older bloodline that I used to use, what I learned was if I kept breeding too tight within the same bloodline, you would start to produce water puppies, that's a whole other video episode I'll talk about on another time. But it was every litter, when we bred tighter on the blood, we realized that we were producing puppies that were water puppies, which were puppies that when they're born, they're filled with water and they ultimately die. So anyway, what I'm just getting at is those are all things that a successful breeder, because he's been breeding the blood enough, he knows the blood enough, and he's successful. That's the key. He's successful with the blood. He can tell you the hiccups that are in the blood, because there's no perfect blood out there. Everything has its quirks. Like certain dogs of breeds are known for hip dysplasia and things like that, and that's where you do your genetic testing and things like that. But like I said, it's more than just health problems. It's also physical traits. What does the blood do? Things like that. So like I said, what I'm just getting at, a successful breeder will be able to tell you what quirks the blood has, and to be mindful of them, and it can help you out a lot and save you a lot of money and a lot of time. Like I said, a successful breeder, because if you go to a breeder who maybe isn't successful, or maybe they just started, or whatever the case may be, some newer breeders can really you could get a really good deal. But at the same time, if they're newer, they may not be as understanding to the quirks that are going on within their blood. They haven't been using it long enough to really know what things to look out for, what issues they come across with the particular blood, all that stuff. They haven't been. It's like a marriage. It's fresh for them, so they don't know all. I shouldn't say that. They don't know all the flaws. I shouldn't say that. No, what I'm getting at is they haven't been breeding, they haven't been using the blood long enough. They may not particularly know it to the full extent as to, what the issues may be with the blood and so on and so forth. So when you come across issues, they may not be of much help to you. Then the obviously don't buy a dog or add a dog's blood to your program if the breeder isn't producing what you like. I mean, that's obvious, because you're not going to get what you want then, more than likely, which is obvious. If you look at the breeder's yard and none of the dogs are anything of the look that you like, and it's the blood that you're going to be using, it's kind of obvious I wouldn't use that then, obviously. So when it comes to dealing with particular bloodlines, don't be afraid to ask questions, especially if this is something that you're going to be committing to for a very long time. If someone asks me a question about my particular bloodline, I have no problem answering it whatsoever. And nothing will be perfect. This is really just to be more of a guide for you guys, because experience also plays a large role. And I'm trying to pass some of that to you guys, but you guys are going to learn as you go, and that's okay. You may deal with a particular bloodline and you realize and learn certain things. That's all part of the process. So don't be discouraged if you don't get the particular results that you want right away. You got to remember, more than likely you're inexperienced, and it takes time to build up that experience. Or even if you have some experience, it still takes time to build up more of it. So don't be discouraged if you don't get the results you want right away. Everything is a learning lesson, and in the process, you're going to be gaining the necessary experience. Don't abandon the bloodline. And I see this all the time, that breeders breed to one particular bloodline. Maybe they get the results they don't want, or even if they do get the results they want, but then they jump ship to another bloodline, to another bloodline, to another bloodline. And then you never really get to know the bloodline you're working with. You never get to really know the characteristics, the traits, everything that comes with that, the good and the bad. So don't abandon the bloodline that you particularly choose to use. The key thing is also to trust the blood and trust the breeder that you're getting the dog from. If you don't trust the breeder, then you shouldn't probably buy the dog. Trust the breeder that you're getting the dog from. And just be confident in the fact that if you're getting a good dog, you're confident you're getting a good dog, you're getting a good bloodline, you're getting it from a good breeder, and then you're breeding to other good dogs with good bloodlines, you're going to produce good dogs. It may take some time, but it's inevitable. It's really kind of inevitable. And it's as simple as that. And if you stick with like that business model, you're probably going to produce great dogs probably sooner than later, rather than scatter breeding. You'll eventually become an expert with those dogs, in that particular bloodline, and getting the results you want successfully, and that's, in my opinion, what you want to be as a breeder. That's the goal as a breeder, is to successfully get the results you want from selective breedings with specific bloodlines. So I know I went on a tangent, guys, but I see the missus coming. So anyway, guys, I hope this information was helpful. I hope it was useful. Let me know if you guys want to hear part 2 or whatever the case may be. Drop a comment down below. But anyway, guys, I'll see you guys on the next episode of Breeders Hacks.